Okay, Masechet Eruvin, 43, and hopefully we'll get into 44, at least 44a as well. We're going to start off talking about Rabban Gamliel. In the Mishnah, we saw that Rabban Gamliel is of the opinion, I'll just show you the Mishnah here once again, that someone who is taken against his will to outside the city in the middle of nowhere, so there he en lo ela arba amot, but if they brought him back, then it's as if he didn't leave. If he does go to a different city and they leave him there, that is subject to a machloket. If they put him in a pen or stable, so Rabban Gamliel says he can walk around the entire thing, even though he's not within his Eruv anymore, and he left it. Doesn't matter. In his new place, he can walk around the entire enclosed area, according to Rabban Gamliel. And the two other, Rabbi Yoshua and Rabbi Akiva, disagree and say he cannot. So that was a pen or a stable. And then added to that is a story where they were on a ship. And Rabban Gamliel says you can walk anywhere on the ship, even though the ship is outside, keeps moving. And so therefore the whole thing is going outside the Techum, no matter where you are. But the ship is all in a contained unit, and therefore you're allowed to walk anywhere on the ship. But in that case, the same Rabbi Yoshua and Rabbi Akiva says no, they only stayed within their 4 cubits with even on the ship, because it says Ratzu lachmirat al atzman. They wanted to be more stringent. Okay, so this will come up again today. So we're going to see Rabban Gamliel. We said halakha does follow Rabban Gamliel in the case of a boat, that you can walk anywhere in the boat. We're going to see 2 reasons for it. One, because it has walls around, so it's an enclosed area. And the Bizera says because it's a moving frame of reference. So you have 4 amot wherever you are, but since your entire place keeps moving, so therefore you get reset every time the boat moves. And so therefore, since you keep getting reset, even if I walk 3 feet and then the boat moves, so now I'm in a new spot in any case. So therefore I can keep doing that. So that's two reasons. And so all agree actually to Rabbi Zera's reason when the boat's moving, and we're going to bring a proof from the Mishnah. Then the next topic will be, does Techum Shabbat apply above 10 tefachim? We know that Reshut Harabim we saw is only from the ground till 10 tefachim. Above that is not called Reshut Harabim anymore. How about for Techum Shabbat regarding going outside 2,000 amot? If you're going on an elevated area, is that also considered? We'll bring 2 proofs, yes, and 2 attempted proofs, no. We'll see something very interesting about an astrolabe and the science of measuring distances, using ratios and shadows. And then hopefully we'll get to it of making a human chain. If someone is stuck outside a techum, if you can get a bunch of people and they all stand next to each other, kind of hold hands, they don't have to actually hold hands, but right, they can actually form a wall, a human wall, and then encompass the person. And then since Rabban Gamliel said, if you're in an enclosed area, then you can walk within that enclosed area, even if it came up new on Shabbat, then you can walk. So we're going to talk about the possibility of creating a human chain in order to encompass someone who's outside the Techum. Okay, so that is all going to be based on Rabban Gamliel. So that'll be a good place to begin. So we said that halakha, Rav said halakha is like Rabban Gamliel in all cases. Shemuel said halakha is like Rabban Gamliel only regarding the case of the boat. But not in the stable or the pen. Okay, in any case, what is the reason that you can walk around the entirety of the boat? Well, see, the boat is actually better than the other cases of the pen because you were on the boat even before Shabbat started. And the walls of the boat are your enclosure. And so since you were there before Shabbat started, therefore the boat is your place and you can walk around the entire boat. This is unlike the case of the pen or the jail where you were in a city and kidnappers took you and moved you to that jail. So you were not there at the beginning of Shabbat. Okay, that's Rabba's explanation. The Bizera Amar Ho'ilu Sfina Notalto Metechilat Arba'a Umenachto Besof Arba'a. The Ri says the reason is because the boat, when it's moving, is picking you up anyway and moving you outside of 4 amot and then putting you back down. In other words, we're looking at the frame of reference to be the ground, not the boat itself. And so since you're being pushed, it's almost as if kidnappers are taking you and pushing you outside. And so wherever you are, no matter what, you always have 4 amot around you. And since you were moved on your own, so therefore I'll say I'm at the front of the boat and I walk a few feet back, and now the boat moved anyway. So now it resets my middle, and so I can walk another few feet. That's the Bizera. You'll notice the Bizera's opinion works only because the boat is moving. Rabba would work whether the boat's moving or not. Okay, that's going to come up in a second. My benaihu, what is the difference? What would be a practical case in which, depending on which case which reason you said, would come to a different outcome? What if the walls of the boat fell down? Right? If it didn't have walls, let's say it's just a flat raft or something like that. If it doesn't have walls, then it's really not an enclosure. And so, according to Rabbah, you would not be able to carry to walk around the entire boat. According to Bizera, it's still moving, so it's still resetting your spot, so it's fine. Or if you jump from one ship to another, even if it has walls. According to Rabbah, it's only because I was within those walls when Shabbat started. If I jump over to another boat, I was not within the walls of the second boat when Shabbat started, so his reason would not apply. But Abi Zera's reason that the boats keep moving, so now the second boat is moving, and then it resets my place. So then it would be allowed. Okay, so that's 2 practical differences. Rabbi Zera, my tama lo amar ke Rabbah. How come Rabbi Zera doesn't agree with Rabbah's opinion? It sounds like a reasonable proposal. Amalach mechaisot lehabriach maim asiyot. He says the walls around the boat are not there to create an enclosure for you. They're not making a house for you, but rather they're just there to keep the water out. That's all there, right? And so therefore you can't consider this actually an enclosure. So that's why he doesn't. It's the status of those walls are not residence walls. Okay, but Abba, my tama lo amar ke bizera. Abba, why don't you agree with the reason of the bizera? It does keep moving, so doesn't it keep resetting your spot? So he says, b'mahalechet kule amala pelige ki pelige b'shamda. He says, you're right. The truth is that everyone will agree to this reason, and if the boat's moving, then according to all opinions, that is fine. It's kind of a little counterintuitive. You would think if the boat is still, then that would be more of a reason that you can walk further than if the boat's moving, right? But because of his reasoning, the moving boat, everyone agrees to that it keeps resetting your spot so you can walk everywhere. And the only argument is if the boat is standing still, do you consider the walls as walls or not? Okay, now we're going to actually prove from the Mishnah that it is in fact the case that when the boat's moving, everyone agrees that you can walk around the entire thing, even the Akiva, as I'll see here. Amar Rav Nachman Beisak, Matitin me daika de malechet la pilige. We can infer from the Mishnah that in fact, if the boat's moving, everyone agrees you can walk around the entire boat. Mimai midikatane maaseh shabab mepelan dasrin bifliga sfinatam bayam. So the case of Mishnah, when they were coming from this place in Italy, and the boat set sail on Shabbat, and so now they're far away from the port where they set sail from. Rabban Gamliel says the boat's in my enclosure and they can walk throughout. So it says they wanted to be extra stringent upon themselves. Now, what do you mean extra stringent? So ela iamat pelige. So if they had a disagreement and Rabbi Akiva felt that when it's moving, even when it's moving, it's not allowed, then you wouldn't say they wanted to be stringent upon themselves. It would just say they didn't walk around because it's not allowed. The language of stringency sounds like they agreed in principle that since the boat's moving, we could walk around the entire thing. We just want to be extra stringent. And so therefore they did not. And so therefore, from the language of the Mishnah, we can tell that in principle, everyone agrees when the boat is moving, the Techum Shabbat, those 4 amot, keep resetting and you can walk around the entire thing. Okay, good. Amar Rav Hashem matnitin daika, and he said Rav Hashem is going to bring another proof from the second story in the Mishnah. The katene sefina dumya de dir vesahar ma dir vesahar de kebi'i af sefina nami de kebi'i. Not from the second story, but rather from another law in the Mishnah that it compares the case of the boat to the case of when thugs take a person, kidnaps them, and put them in a pen or a stable. And so just like those are fixed places, so too the boat is a fixed place. That's the case that they're talking about when they argue. And some, Rabban Gamliel says, it's okay, you can walk around the whole thing. And the other, the Yoshua and Bekiba, say you cannot. They're talking about something that's fixed in place. So therefore, the case where they argue about is the case of a boat that's fixed, like a pen and stable. The case that they agree with is when the boat is moving, and they just took upon themselves a stringency. Good. So, okay, those are two good proofs. Now we know it says Hilcheta Rabban Gamliel bisfina. So this language that says we follow Rabban Gamliel regarding the boat. Hilcheta mechlal deflige. So that sounds like there is someone who disagrees regarding a boat. It says, yes, there is someone. In fact, Behatanya, Hananya, who happened to be the nephew of Rabbi Yoshua, Omer, Kola to Hayom, Yashvu v'danu bidvar halacha. That day, when all those rabbis were on that boat that left, and they were arguing the entire day about what the halacha is, Emesh shichriya achi abba halacha k'Rabban Gamliel b'sfina, v'halacha k'Rabbi Akiva b'dir v'sahar. And so the day before, Achi Abba, his uncle, meaning Rabbi Yoshua, decided that we followed Rabban Gamliel in the case of the boat, but we followed Rabbi Akiva in regarding the pen and the stable that are stationary. And then, so that would also apply to a stationary boat. Okay, so in fact, that's why you have to say Halacha Rabban Gamliel bisfina, because not in all cases, and not even within all cases of sefina would that be true. Okay, good. So now we that concludes that section, right? Where we had two different reasons, and we all agree when the boat's moving that it's allowed, and the halacha is not like that, as proven from the Mishnah. But halacha is not like Rabban Gamliel in cases where it's not moving and where it's or a jail or pen or stable when a person is moved there. Okay, so that concludes that topic, and now we're going to ask about traveling above 10 handbreadths outside the 2,000 amot. We're going to bring a proof from the Mishnah, the Resha, and the Sefa. We're going to try to attempt prove that yes, Tuchum Shabbat does apply. In other words, it's prohibited even above. We're going to see the boat traveling on a boat. The boat is elevated; it's way above not only the level of the sea, but the ground. Right? It's really the seabed. That's the floor. So this is way higher than that, and yet there is an issue of carrying. We reject both of them, and then we're going to see it's going to get into a little bit of Agadah about Eliyahu Navi and the Mashiach arriving, and can they arrive on Shabbat? And so we're going to, and we assume that Eliyahu and the Mashiach travel above 10 tefachim. They travel by a heavenly chariot. So okay, but we're not gonna have any proof in the end, but the journey will be interesting in any case. Okay, so back to the Talmud. Yesh techumin lemala masara or en techumin lemala asara. Does the whole prohibition of boundary limits apply when you're traveling above 10 tefachim or not? Amud gabawa asara v'rachabar ba'a tibayelach. Dar'a semichtahi. Okay, if you're talking about a post that's 10 tefachim high and it's 4 tefachim wide, in other words, about a foot wide, then don't ask that question, because then yes, it will. That is a nice walkway. It's comfortable to walk in. So if you have something like that, I mean, an elevated walkway or bridge or something like that, you consider that just like a hill. The terrain is not always flat. And so that's just becomes the ground. So we're not talking about a case like that. In such a case, you would have a problem. ve'eno rachav arba'a. Inami dekazil bikfitza. What we're asking about is a thin ledge that's less than a foot wide. Maybe some of a wall on top of a wall or fence or a tightrope or a curb or something like that, where it's not comfortable to walk and it's high up. So maybe you consider that as you're not near on the ground, and then you can walk even beyond the 2,000 amot boundary. Or let's say you're leaping in the air, right? Can you leap high and up in the air beyond that boundary? Or lishna harina b'sfinamai. A sefina is kind of like the same thing, because you're up on top of the boat, which is above the surface of the water, and certainly much higher than the seabed. And so now this is relevant for us, right? Can you violate going out of the techum if you're up high on a boat? So let's see. Amara Hoshaya Tashima. Let's try to prove that in fact you do violate. Right? So the outline. We're going to try to prove that yes, there is such a thing as techum Shabbat, because look, we're talking about a boat here, and we're talking about violating techum. Tashima Maseh Shabbat mipilan dasirin. Darsin, we know the story already. They're coming from Italy, they're on the boat. If you say that there is a concept of Techum Shabbat above Ten Tevachim, that's why they wanted to be stringent upon themselves. But if there's no Techum Shabbat at all above Ten Tevachim, why would anybody bother being stringent? Why would Rabbi Akiva be stringent upon himself? There's no such thing as Techum Shabbat above 10 Tevachim. Therefore, you see, there is Techum Shabbat above 10 Tevachim. All right, that seems to be a good proof, except that now we quote Kidamar Rava, what Rava said, B'malechet birkak, hachanameh b'malechet birkak. Regarding another case, he said there could be a case where you're going through shallow, swampy water, and maybe the water is very low, lower than 10 handbreadths from the seabed. It can't be a very big boat, but a raft or something. And in that case, that's what they were talking about. They were going in a shallow area, and it was within Tevachim. So therefore, you can't prove from here that above 10 Tevachim is considered traveling is a problem of Techum. So okay, there was no proof from there. All right, we're going to go through the same exercise with the next story. Tashima. One time they were traveling, right? Rabban Gamliel and his colleagues were traveling right before Shabbat, and they didn't get into the port until Shabbat started already. And Rabban Gamliel said, "I saw that we were within Techum Shabbat, so it's okay." Now, iamat bishlama yesh techumin shapir, elam iamat en techumin, kilo hayinu betoch hatechum mayaveh. So this whole story only makes sense if there is a concept of techum Shabbat above Tevachim, where they were above on the boat. But if not, then what does it matter if they were within techum Shabbat when Shabbat started or not? Why did Rabban Gamliel have to make the measurement if they're in any case above 10 Tevachim? So it must be that techum Shabbat does apply above 10 Tevachim. Rava, no, b'malechet birkak. Rava could say the same answer. Actually, Rava probably said it here. Was the first time he said it, and the first case over here is Kida Rava, quoting Rava about the second case, right? So Rava only said it once regarding this case, and the Talmud then quotes the other story and applies Rava to that story as well. Okay, they're kind of out of order. Well, they're in order in the Mishnah, but out of order of what Rava said first. Okay, so oh well, for the two proofs that yes, there is Techum Shabbat. Now we're going to attempt a proof that there is no Techum Shabbat above 10 Tevachim. Tashema haneshab shema'ata ti'it ameran besafra beshabeta kamed Rav Chisda besura behane behade panya beshabeta kamed Rava bepumbedita. One time there were these 7 teachings regarding Masechet Chulin. They're mentioned there, and in Shabbat morning they were said before Rav Chisda in Surah. Here we have a map right here, Surah, south on the Euphrates. And then in the afternoon, Shabbat afternoon, the same Shabbat, they were said in Pupadita, which is way far away, too far for anyone to be able to travel on Shabbat within a Techum, without violating Techum Shabbat. So look at that. And so how did someone say it here on Surah and then present the same thing here in Pupadita? So Man Amrinu, who could have taught this? Lav Eliyahu Amrinu, must be Eliyahu Nabi. And he traveled through a miraculous leap right? He went here and then traveled through the air in the helicopter, and then he dropped down here, and that's why. So you see, therefore, Eliyahu Navi still he has to keep Tichum Shabbat, since he's traveling above 10 Tevachim, so you see proof that from here that you don't apply 10 Tevachim above 10 Tevachim, you don't apply Tichum. All right, so that's the proof. Is that good? Alma en Tichumin lama Sarah. La Dilma Yosef Shida Amrinhu. No, it didn't have to be Eliyahu. It could have been Yosef the demon. He also travels flying high in the air, and Yosef the demon does not observe Shabbat, and so it could be him. Okay, usually you have agadan, a halacha. Here these fantastic agadot are used as proof within the halacha. Okay, but in any case, we don't have a proof from it. But now we'll try again. Tashema, Hareni Nazir beyom sheben David ba mutar lishtot yain b'shabbatot tovim tovim. It's fantastic baraita, right? Someone says, I will be a Nazir on the day that Mashiach comes, Ben David, right? So he's allowed, all week long, he can't drink wine, but on Shabbat and Yom Tov, he's allowed to drink wine because we have a tradition that Mashiach will not come on Shabbat and Yom Tov. But he can come during the week, and therefore, he doesn't know when Mashiach is going to come, so he can't drink any wine in the morning because maybe Mashiach will come on Monday afternoon, Tuesday afternoon, but Shabbat he won't come. So let's analyze this. If you say that there is a problem of Tichum Shabbat, you're not allowed to travel even above 10 Tevachim. That's why he's allowed to drink wine, because Mashiach, who's going to be coming and traveling above 10 Tefachim, if you say he's not allowed to even travel, that traveling above 10 Tefachim is not allowed, so even Mashiach is not allowed to travel on Shabbat. And so therefore, he knows Mashiach will not come on Shabbat, so we can drink wine, because that was his vow. But if you say that there is no problem of Tichum Shabbat above 10 Tevachim, then Mashiach, who is traveling above, can come on Shabbat and Yom Tov. So therefore, he should refrain from drinking wine even on Shabbat and Yom Tov. That's the proof. All right, we reject this proof. Right? Yom Hashem. So the Pasuk Malachi says that Eliyahu Navi is going to come one day before Mashiach. And so therefore you're always going to have a warning. So any day, if you're not on Shabbat, if you know that Eliyahu did not come on Friday, then you know that Mashiach will not come on Shabbat. And that's why you can always drink wine on Shabbat, because you'll know from the day before you would have gotten a warning. Okay, now obviously this doesn't work because wait, in that case, that's true during the week as well. Eliyahu is going to come on, if Mashiach comes on Wednesday, Eliyahu is going to come on Tuesday. So therefore, you always would have a warning. So you always know Mashiach will not come today because I know Eliyahu didn't come yesterday. And therefore, you should be allowed to drink wine all the time. Oh, so rather, it could be that Eliyahu did come, but he went to the Bet Din Hagadol. He has to present himself in front of the Bet Din in Yerushalayim. But maybe we didn't get the message yet, right? Maybe he did come, but it doesn't mean that everyone got the message. So therefore, we should expect maybe he will come any day. Well, that's that we apply also on Shabbat and Yom Tov. That maybe Eliyahu came on Friday to the Bet Din. We didn't hear about it, and still Mashiach might come on this day. So that doesn't solve the question. That doesn't clarify it. But this does. Muftak lehen she'Yisrael she'en Eliyahu ba lo ba'arvei Shabbatot ve'lo ba'arvei yamim tovim mipnei haTorah. Oh, different reason. We know that Eliyahu will never come on Friday because everybody's busy preparing for Shabbat on that day. And then if Eliyahu comes on Friday, everybody's going to go out to greet the Mashiach, and they're not going to do their shopping. They're not going to make the halah. They're not going to put their chamin. They're not going to set their timers, and there's going to be a problem for Shabbat. And therefore, we know Eliyahu will not come on Friday, and therefore Mashiach will not come on Shabbat, and that's why he can eat and drink wine on Shabbat. All right, good. Sakadatek medeliyahu la'ata Mashiach nami la'ate b'malah Shabbat Shabbata lishtere. Wait a second. Since Eliyahu's not going to come on Friday, so also Mashiach won't come on Friday because the same thing. We have to prepare, and we won't be ready. So therefore, even on Friday, you should be allowed to drink wine, right? Because you know that Mashiach cannot come on Friday. No, we don't reject that. Eliyahu la'ateh, Mashiach ateh. Techavant ateh, Mashiach, kol abadim li'Israel. We only have a tradition that Eliyahu will not come on Friday so that we can prepare for Shabbat. But if Mashiach comes on Friday, we don't have to worry because then all the preparations, all the Shabbat preparations will be done by other nations. And so we won't even have to have things prepared. So we wouldn't have to worry about that. Okay, this is a good clarification. This is why we don't say Hoshi'anu in Shacharit on Friday morning, because Hoshi'anu is praying for Mashiach, but we have a tradition Mashiach won't come on Friday, and so therefore, but actually it's more accurate to say Eliyahu Navi won't come on Friday. All right, now, if so, then you should be allowed, this Nazir should be allowed to drink wine on Sunday, since Eliyahu cannot come on Shabbat, right? And so therefore, Mashiach cannot come on Sunday. So, so now we're going to reattempt our proof, right? Now we can prove that that en techumin, right? That there's no problem of traveling above 10 tefachim, because if there was a problem of traveling even above of Tchum Shabbat above 10 tefachim, then Eliyahu would not be able to come on Friday, and then Mashiach could not come on Sunday, and then Nazir would be allowed to drink on Sunday. But from the fact that the halacha is that the Nazir cannot drink on Sunday, that means Mashiach can come on Sunday, and that means Eliyahu can come on Shabbat, even though he's traveling above 10 tefachim. So that proves that you are allowed to travel to Chum Shabbat above 10 tefachim, right? Well, maybe. Actually, this Tanai wasn't sure whether it's allowed or not allowed, and so therefore he says, listen, just in case, the halacha is that Eliyahu can come above 10 tefachim, and they may come on Shabbat, and therefore Mashiach may come on Sunday, and therefore you should not drink wine on Sunday. But he wasn't saying as a halacha that he knows for sure, so therefore we leave that unanswered, unproven. Okay. Now this is a side question, a tangent question about this case. This is not going to prove anything about Tuchum Shabbat being above 10 tefachim, but just a question about that specific case. When this Nazir, when he makes this vow and says, I will be Nazir any day that Mashiach comes. So when is he making this vow? If it's during the week, so it's on Tuesday, and he says that, then he becomes a Nazir immediately that day, because Mashiach can come that day. And once he becomes a Nazir, he has the status of Nazir. It doesn't get undone on Shabbat, and so he would be Nazir no matter what. He would always can never drink wine. So that can't be the case. Rather, he must be that he takes the vow upon himself on Shabbat or on Yom Tov, and on that day, since Mashiach cannot come on that day, he can continue drinking wine. But then, once Motzei Shabbat comes, and by the way, this is why we sing all the songs for Eliyahu Navi on Motzei Shabbat. We mention him in the Havdalah, right? And in all the Pizmonim, because now, once again, Mashiach can come. So at that moment, this Nazir would would become a Nazir, and then from then on, all Shabbat and Yomim Tovim, he would not be able to drink wine. So really, this whole discussion was only talking about that first Shabbat or that first Yom Tov. Okay, good. So that concludes this section about trying to prove whether or not Tuchum Shabbat applies above 10 tefachim. And now a short section about the science of measuring distances, because we have this story about Rabban Gamliel, and they were traveling on Friday afternoon, and the boat came in after Shabbat already started. But Rabban Gamliel says, I checked in my telescope, and I saw that we were within 2,000 amot from land. And even though it took a long time because it was rough winds, but we were within the Chum Shabbat, and therefore we can descend off of the boat, right? Because the land is also within our tefachim. Okay, so let's see how we did it. Tana shefoferet hayta lo Rabban Gamliel shehaya mabit vesofer ba 2,000 amma bayabasha uchnegda 2,000 bayam. He had the special tube, and he can see 2,000 amot on land and also on sea. It must be talking about some kind of an astrolabe, which there were already invented. Something like this, that's a tube that's on a slight angle, and you can, based on the angle, you can tell how far away you are. So he knew he was up on his scientific instruments. Okay. It also works if you want to know the depth of a valley. You take this instrument and you can see how deep it is. If you want to know how high a tree is without having to climb up it, you could use an instrument like this, but you can do an easier thing. You could look at a shadow. You could take a pole. Let's say the pole is 6 feet tall, and so the shadow is only 3 feet. So then you know that the shadow at that time of the day is half the pole. So then you go and measure the shadow of the tree. That's easy to do. You just measure with your feet. And if you see this is 10 feet, then you know that the tree is 20 feet. Okay, that's a good system. Excellent. All right, who says, right? Everything's in the Talmud, right? Even ratios and geometry. There you go. If a person does not want animals to rest in the shadow of a grave. So here's a picture. You have a grave like this, and then at a certain time of day, this one side of it will have a nice shadow, right, during the heat of the day. And so then the animal's going to be there. When the animal's there, maybe he might smell a bone and try to dig up some bones, and you don't want them to desecrate the grave. And so therefore, what should you do? Well, go around there at about 10 a.m., right, when the sun starts getting high and hot, and you look at where the shadow is. And wherever that is, you build a ramp there, and that way the shadow, the sun's the shade will be below the ramp, and there will be no area of shade, and then the animal will not want to will have no benefit in staying there, and that will protect the grave. So okay, good. Some more science about shadows. All right, and so that concludes the scientific analysis. And so now we get to the next topic, which is the human chain. Where can you surround the person with the human chain and kind of create a wall and then allow them to come in? What we're going to see is two baraita. One baraita says, no, this is not allowed. And the second baraita is going to say it's okay. Well, a similar case about a sukkah. If you can, a wall falls down, you want to create a wall out of a person. Can a person be like a wall? But these two baraitot contradict each other, and we're going to have three different ways of resolving the contradiction, because we don't want to have two baraitot that contradict. So the first, we're going to say that the first one is Rabbi Eliezer, and the second one is Chachamim. That's not going to work. Then we're going to try out saying the first one is Meir, the second one is Yehuda. That's not going to work. And we're going to end up saying is that the first one that's prohibited is talking about when there's only 3 walls of a sukkah, and one of them falls down. So then it goes from being a kosher sukkah to a non-kosher sukkah, and so that's a problem of then putting it back up, because now you're making a kosher sukkah. Whereas the second baraita that talks about a sukkah that's missing or that fell down, that's talking about it had a 4th wall, and now you're just it had 3 walls already and just putting up a 4th wall. Now that wall is not really doing anything. It's maybe extra privacy or protection, but it's not creating a halachic new wall, and so that's why in that case it's allowed. Okay, that's what we're going to see, and that's the outline. So now let's look. It actually all starts with a story. Yativ Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak achorei de Rava. Rav Nachman was sitting behind. When they would sit in shiur, the rabbi would sit in front, and the students were all behind each other in rows. The best students were in the first row, then second best, third best, right? If you ask a good question, they promote you. If you don't know something, they demote you to the back of the classroom. Okay, so Rabbi Nachman was behind Rava, and Ve'ativ Rava kamed Rav Nachman. Rava is right there in the front row, in front of Rav Nachman, who's teaching. Amar le Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak le Rava, Maika mibaya le. Oh, sorry, I skipped the story. Let me go back. Okay. Nehemiah. Bered Rav Hanilai meshachte shemata unfak chutz lachum. Okay, you have the sage Nehemiah, and he was engrossed in his learning. Remember, they learned everything by heart, so he's walking around and pacing while he's learning, and he ended up walking on Shabbat outside the Techum, and he didn't realize because he was so concentrating on his learning, he forgot where he was. Okay, all right, David, this seems to happen often. Yeah. Amar le Rav Chisda le Rav Nachman, Nehemiah talmidecha sharui betzar. So Rav Chisda saw Nehemiah, walking out there, and so he comes to Rav Nachman, the Rosh Yeshiva, and says, "Quick, Nehemiah is in trouble." What's in trouble? He's not in a burning house or anything, but he's stuck outside the Techum. And then he just realized he's outside the Techum there. He can only walk 4 amot in every direction. He's going to be stuck there the whole Shabbat. So this is a rabbinic emergency. Okay, so the rabbinic SWAT team, right, comes to the rescue. So here's what he says. Amar lo, aseh lo mechisa shel bnei adam v'yikanes. Go get a whole bunch of people there and let them make a human partition, right, to surround him, and till he gets, so that he can walk from wherever he is back into civilization, back within the Techum. Okay, all of those people have to be people that are allowed to walk that way. So they must have been, they must be from, maybe they made an Eruv, right, outside the city or wherever it is. Okay, so he said you make the human chain. So there you go. This is the source of it. All right, now we're going to analyze the story. Rav Nachman was behind Rava, and they're sitting before Rav Nachman. And so Amar le Rav Nachman b'Yitzchak le-Rava. The student in the second row asked the student in the first row. Right, so that's good. When they didn't have students in the first row, knew everything, and then as it went back, they would help the students in the back understand. By the way, this is a good educational technique for differential teaching, right? You have the better students help out the weaker students, and that benefits them too. So the question is, what was the question to Rav Chisda? What exactly were they asking when they came to Rav Chisda and said, Nehemiah is outside, what should we do? If you had a lot of people, enough people to go and make a wall and make a partition outside for him, and halacha Rabban Gamliel. And you're saying their question was, do we follow Rabban Gamliel or do we not follow Rabban Gamliel? Because Rabban Gamliel, remember, is the one that says that if you have partition, if you're taken out of if kidnappers come and take you out to a pen, as long as it's enclosed, you can walk anywhere in the pen. So this would be the same thing, right? He went inadvertently outside the Techum, and now we're creating a human partition for him to come. So if your question is, do we follow halacha like Rabban Gamliel or not, right? Is that what his question was? Or were there not enough people to make a full chain? And the question is about Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer, in a later Mishnah that we're going to see, says that you can combine the 2,000 amot with a person's personal 4 amot. So that if someone is, you have the boundary and then 2 amot more. Picture, right? A boundary and then 2 amot more. Since a person is allowed to walk 4 amot, according to Rabbi Eliezer, the 4 amot is, he's in the middle, so only 2 amot in every direction. So therefore, he can walk 2 amot, and then if that brings him within the 2,000, back within 2,000, then he can finally come back. Okay, so was he asking about that, about the combining, that you're allowed to combine? And so, right, was it that he was within, so close enough that those 2 extra could bring him back in? And was that the question, do we follow Rabbi Eliezer or not? Okay, that's what the student in the second row asked Rava in the front row about the question that was that came up. So Rava answers.
For Rabban Gamliel, didn't we say that the partitions had to be there before Shabbat?
No, not for Rabban Gamliel, because even if no, that was Rabba's explanation of the boat case, right? Why Why only the boat? According to those who say only the boat, but not pen. But Rabban Gamliel himself would say even if he was not in the partition, if kidnappers took him and put him into a pen on Shabbat, then he can walk around the entire thing.
Just on the same topic, we mentioned way back when that you could use animals as a partition. Is using humans just an extension of that, like part of that?
Right, that's going to come up now.
Oh, okay.
Using humans, we're going to see, is a little bit better than an animal, because an animal could just walk away. But a human being is usually a little bit more trustworthy. Although animal you can tie there, I don't know if you could do that to a human being. Okay, good. So so our question was, the question is, what exactly was the question to Rabban Nachman? So Pishita bedela melu gabre askinan. It must be that it was a case that they did not have enough people to make a full human chain all around him and bring him back. If it was a case where they had enough people and they could fully surround him, Rav said, we follow Rabban Gamliel in all cases, in the pen and the boat, moving, not moving, whether he was there before or not there before. So, and we follow him. So it wouldn't be a question. Rather, it must be the case where, let's say, he walked out of Tuchum Shabbat 10 amot, and we had enough people to make a surrounding for 8 amot. So he could come 8 amot, but he's still 2 amot short. The question is, can we combine that with Rabbi Eliezer, and can we say like Rabbi Eliezer that he can skip another 2 amot from his personal space and use that to get into it? And then the answer was yes, because he does say daikaname, and he said yes, we can infer this from the language dakama leyikanes ma yikanes la belo mechisa. Since he said make a human chain and let him enter. What do you mean? Why you have to say let him enter? The whole point is that he wanted to enter. Rather, the enter was even without a mechitza, even without the human chain, you can rely on Rabbi Eliezer and go 2 extra amot and enter. All right, good. So now we have a question on that to Rava, who said that this is allowed. You can make a human chain. Really, Rav Nachman said you can make the human chain, but Rava is explaining it. Nafal dofna lo ya'amid ba adam behema vechelim velo yizrok et hamita lifros aleha sadin lefi she'en osin ohel aray betechila biyom tov ve'en tzarich lomar b'Shabbat. So if you have a sukkah and one of the walls of the sukkah fell on Yom Tov or on Shabbat, you're not allowed to take a person or an animal or utensils and put them there to be the 4th wall. You also can't take a bed and stand it up and put a sheet on it and use that as the wall, because you're not allowed to make a tent. You can't make a temporary structure, even a temporary structure. You're not allowed to build that at first on Yom Tov, and certainly not on Shabbat. So you see the problem? You're not allowed to build partitions on Shabbat, even if a temporary partition. That's a question to this case. How could we allow ourselves to make a human chain around the person so that he can, Nehemiah, so he can walk back in, if I'm not allowed, it says I'm not allowed to use people or anything to make a partition on Shabbat and Yom Tov. All right, so that's a good question. Rava answers him with a different baraita. At amat li meha, v'ana amina lach meha. I'll answer with a different baraita. Ose adam et chavero dofen, kedei sheyochal v'yishte v'yishan, v'yizkof et hamita, v'yifros aleh hasadin, kedei shelo tipol chama al hamet ve'al ha'ochalin. He says you can go and ask your friend to be a wall, right? Would you mind being a wall for me? I have a sukkah here, it has only 2 walls, and I need a 3rd one. Would you mind standing here for a few minutes while I eat or drink, or maybe while I sleep? Okay, how long is he going to nap for? A few hours. We're going to just stand there, and you be the human wall. That's permitted. And you can also take a bed and put a sheet over it, upright, and then that will be the wall. Or you can do that for a sukkah. You can do that to protect a corpse or food if it's in the sun, so they won't go bad. all that is allowed. So Rava says, I'm relying on this one that says you can make a human chain because you can make a partition out of human beings in a sukkah, and so I'm going to do the same thing. All right, so Rava got out of it that way, but we now have a problem. Kashyana hadadeh, we have a contradiction between these two sources that say the opposite things. Okay, notice that the first one is talking about a case of it fell, and here it didn't say it fell. So that'll be important later. Okay, la kashya had to be Eliezer, ha Rabbanan, ditnan. So the first one that prohibits is Rabbi Eliezer. The second one that permits is Rabbanan, because we can compare it to the following case which we saw back in Masechet Shabbat. Bekak hachalon Rabbi Eliezer omer bizman shekashur v'talui pokikin bo, b'im lav en pokikin bo. If we have a window shutter, right? Let's say they had an open window and they had like a piece of wood or something that they would put into the window to close it. Rabbi Eliezer says, as long as it's tied and hanging there, then it's already attached. So then you can just swing it and put it in. You're not building anything. It's just already there. You're just moving it around. But if not, you can't go and take a loose panel and then put it on top of the window. That is considered building. The Chachamim say, no matter what, you can put it in, because this is something, you're not building it from scratch. This is something that was already made. This is the window shutter. So you're just putting it in. It's a temporary thing, and that's fine. Okay, so therefore we can see that this seems to be the same. They seem to match up. The Eliezer, who says you cannot you cannot use a temporary close up the window with even temporarily. So therefore he would say like the first baraita that you cannot make a wall on Shabbat and Yom Tov. And Chachamim will say you can close up a window. They would say so you can make a temporary structure, and so therefore they would say, be like this one where it says who says. The second baraita that said is it is permitted. So this seems to match up. But we reject this. Now, actually, everyone here agrees, even Rabbanan, that you're not allowed to make a temporary structure on Yom Tov or Shabbat. In this case, it's only adding something. The wall's already there. You're just adding something by closing up the window. So Chamim only allow here adding something to a wall that's already there. That's not the same as our case here, where there is no wall at all, and I'm asking you to stand there to be the wall. So in this case, all these opinions would prohibit. So that can't be we can't resolve the two baraitot by assigning them these names. We'll try another machloket. The baraitot are going to contradict no matter what, but at least if we assign names, then we're assigning the two baraitot to known entities, so we can make sense out of it. Detanya, asa'ah labehema dofen lasuka, Rabbi Meir posel, Rabbi Yehuda machshir. If you have a sukkah and you took an animal and made it as a wall, Rabbi Meir says it's not a good wall. In other words, the sukkah is not a good sukkah. Because the animal can just simply walk away. And Rabbi Yehuda says that is a good wall. You can rely on the animal to be a wall. So now this is, we're going to ironically switch them around, right? So Rabbi Meir de kapasil hatam, alma lo mechisahi, hachash shareh, de la mideh ka'abid. So Rabbi Meir, since he says over there that the animal is not a kosher wall, therefore, you see, because it's not, animal is not a partition. If so, in our case, you would be allowed to put an animal there because it's not considered a wall. So if I just want my animal to stand there, just for shade, not to be a halachic wall, so I would be permitted to put the person animal there because it's not kosher anyway. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda, who's Rabbi Yehuda dekamachshir hatam alma mechisahi hacha asar. Since Rabbi Yehuda says that an animal can be a kosher wall, therefore that would be prohibited to put an animal there because I'm not allowed to create a partition. And so, therefore, we can resolve the contradiction between the two baraitot that way. The biuda is the first baraita that prohibits putting an animal or a person as a wall, and the bimeir is the second baraita that permits it. He permits it because it's not a kosher wall in any case, so therefore you can put it there. All right, that's what we're going to try. The tizbera, hold on, that's not going to make any sense. It only said this, his law regarding an animal, because it can walk away, so you can't trust it to stay there. But a person, you can trust. And how about utensils? You can stack them up there, put books, right, plates, put them there, and they're not going to run away. So there would be a good mechitza. So in that case, why would it be me'ir? Right? Why would he say that that would be a good wall, therefore it should be prohibited? So the reasoning doesn't make sense. That doesn't fit that baraita. Who did the Meir follow regarding general building? If he follows the Eliezer, then you're not allowed to even add anything to a present structure. And Meir says you can put the animal there. Rabbanan only said you're allowed to add something to an existing wall. Nobody, not even Rabbanan, said you can actually make a wall. So nobody says that. Nobody says you can make a wall. Therefore, we reject that possibility. And now let me just go back to our outline. Right? So we saw that you can make a human chain. We saw one baraita that says prohibits using a human being for a sukkah wall. A second baraita says you can use a human being for a sukkah wall, and well, you want the human chain to be okay, so you want to find some way that this would be allowed. So now we're going to come to the final resolution, whether you're talking about a third wall or a fourth wall for a sukkah. Okay, Ella ha Rabbanan. Both of them are following the general opinion of the rabbis. Bechelim akelim lakashya ha bedofen shilishit ha bedofen ribi'it. When we were talking about the baraita that says it's not allowed to add a wall, that's talking about the third wall of a sukkah, because now it's turning it into a kosher sukkah. Whereas the one that says you are allowed to add a wall, that's talking about the fourth wall, which is not necessary. And so you're just putting it there because it looks nicer, or you just want more privacy. That's fine. And we can infer from that this is true. The katane nafal dofna shema'mina. The one that says that it's not allowed, the first baraita says it fell. It sounds like it fell. Oh, it's a problem. It fell. Now we can't use it anymore, and we got to go and build it. So that's why we have to see it. So it does actually is implicit in the words. A couple more lines. Ela adam kashya. But what about using the human being, right? We still are wondering about that. Because one baraita says that you can not use a person as a wall, and the other one says you can use a person as a wall. So that sounds like even if the third wall is missing, it says you can use it. It doesn't specify what case. Well, adam nami lakashya kan ledat kan shelo midat. Depends on the person. If he knows that he's being a wall, right? Did you tell him why you asking him to stand there? If he's knowingly partitioned, then it's prohibited, right? Because he can't do that. But if you're just saying, hey, can you pose here for a minute? I just want to look at you there. And he doesn't know that he's a wall, then it's okay. Then he can stand there. All right, now we're going to bring this all back to our original case. Wait, remember those SWAT team that they came in? We got to go save Nehemiah. Everybody come, make a partition around him. Now those people know that they're acting as a wall, don't they? And so they're not allowed to do that if they know they're being a wall, because then they're building a wall that's necessary, right? Here's the problem. Just like in the sukkah, you can't put up a wall if you're actually making a halachic partition. So too, in this case, right? If you actually are there to make a halachic partition, then you can't be standing there. You won't be a good partition if you know that you're partition. So, and that would be the problem in this case. So the answer is Shalom mida'at hava. No. The Rav Nachman told them, hey, would you mind going out there and making a circle? And he didn't tell them why. He said, we're just going to be in a circle. We want to sing in a circle. Right? We're making a Shabbaton. Okay, so they're going for that reason. So therefore, they didn't know that they were being used as a partition. So therefore, it's allowed. Oh, hold on. Last point. Rav Chisda miyat ladat hava. Rav Chisda himself, right? He knew he was the Rosh Yeshiva. He's the one that said to do this. He was one orchestrating it, and he's standing there, so he knows he's going to be a partition, so it shouldn't be allowed for him. Answer is Rav Chisda shelo min haminyan hava. Rav Chisda directed traffic, told everybody to go there, but he himself did not include himself as part of the wall partition, and therefore it was no problem for him. And so now we've resolved all of the problems, and so we'll see tomorrow some more cases about making human human walls. Baruch Adonai Olam, Amen ve'amen.